is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. It's Sunday night, so it is fight night here on the channel. This is episode number 104, and it's another massive show, another exclusive interview with a top name from combat sports. We've also got boxing to talk, Cage Warriors, UFC, and lots more. We are, of course, live on 3 platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please do give us a subscribe, a follow, all that good stuff. You can click the bell for notifications on YouTube so you never miss a show. If you prefer your podcast in audio form, then the Danny Batten Show, as is with all the other content produced by A.C.E Podcast Nation, available there with their own little sites and whatnot. And plenty of content there from us. sportssocial.co.uk for that. And joining me as ever, first and foremost, we have the former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend. He is Mr. Daniel Batten. How are you, mate?
Yeah, you're right, Si. I'm very, very good. I'm still feeling very, very festive. I seem to be Christmas shopping every day, it seems. Don't know where I'm getting the money from to do that, but
mate, do you know, all I see you on social media is either in free t-shirts or Christmas shopping. That's all I see. People just giving you free t-shirts, or they're just shopping. So you must be doing something right, I suppose. But obviously, we'll talk a little bit about your trip to Cage Warriors on Friday, and you obviously as a coach. So we're looking forward to having a little chat about that. But before we get to that, I'm delighted to be joined, and welcome back to the show. He is the UFC's ranked number 6 featherweight in the world. It is Mr. Arnold Almighty Allen. How are you, mate? Welcome back.
Yeah, spot on. Thanks for having me back on.
Looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to it. And I was saying to you just now before we went live, obviously, when you came on before, I think we were still recording shows on the Sunday, and we didn't have the live experience with the viewers and whatnot. And also, you were ranked 9 at that point, so you've gone up 3 in the rankings. I noticed because I had to change my my nameplate for you, make sure it was up to date. But I suppose first and foremost, how are you? How's your injury coming along, and how's everything going?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Everything's getting there. I'm seeing a doctor next week and hopefully get some good news on the hand. Should be able to get back to sparring 100%, hopefully, and prepping for a fight if it's all good. So yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I got to say, after watching like the Cage Warriors fights and some of the recent UFC fights, the amount of like British and Irish, if you like, talent that's in MMA at the moment is just insane. So many top level guys, even guys outside of the UFC, just look like at the moment. Cage Warriors just looks like it's just killers everywhere. Just everyone's just beating everyone, and it's just insanity. But obviously, there's rumors that this UFC show in March 19th, I think it is going to be in London. Is that like for you the perfect next sort of date for you to fight, or would you happily fight in America as well? Like, you're not too bothered?
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to put a London show on, a lot of people suggested that, and they talk about fights me being sort of high up on the card, like a co-main event spot or something like that. So there was people talking about a main event spot, but yeah, that'd be really cool. It's always nice to fight in your home, is it? So, but it is definitely a different experience fighting away and being on those Vegas shows. But yeah, it's always nice fighting back at home.
I think as well, like British MMA fans have been starved of the UFC like live events now for probably coming up to sort of 2.5 years or whatever. So like to have a show like that, I think would be massive. And obviously if you can get like a full house in there, it's going to be something special. If you've got guys like yourself and Leon Edwards, Jack Shaw, there's so many in there, Jake Hadley, all the numerous other guys there. Then you've got guys like Dominic Wooding and people like that in the top end, the Cage Warriors, who are kind of pushing to be on that card as well. It could be a really, really special event. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully it pans out. Obviously, Danny, the last two have been sort of cancelled fairly last minute as well because of COVID restrictions and things like that. But obviously the first one looked so good on paper, but then the second one that they had scheduled looked even better again. It was just so insane, so jam-packed with talent, and there is just so much sort of British talent around. Do we believe it's going to finally happen in March, or something will go wrong?
Who knows? Who knows? You have to let it play out, innit?
Yeah. It'd be nice if it does come out.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it'd just be nice to get it, and like I do think like it's going to be special. Like whoever gets to do that first walkout, British guy to walk out, is going to get one hell of a pop from the crowd, and it's going to be good. So it'll be really interesting. But Arnold, we wanted to kind of focus on you for a little bit and sort of have a chat to you and stuff. Like I think last time we spoke to you, you were out in America. Canada, sorry. Yeah.
I was out in Montreal, yeah.
That's right, yeah. So like is that still, like the general plan, staying out there most of the time, or are you sort of in between both?
So yeah, pretty much my whole UFC career I've been working over at TriStar with Faraz Zahabi. So yeah, I don't see no reason to change that now.
Things are going well, mate. Things are going very well. Like so is there a particular fight that you've got your eyes on coming back now? Like I'm assuming you're itching to get back in the cage and then to get that sort of that big fight. Is there a particular opponent that you like the look of?
100%. For like style wise and ranking wise and everything, the fight I think makes most sense for me is the Korean Zombie. But I think my ranking will probably shift after these fights that have just gone by. Obviously, Josh Emmett got a win. I think he'll be back above me again, and that makes sense. And also you got Giga Chikaz fighting in January. He's fighting Calvin Kattar, so that will also probably knock me down the rankings again. But yeah, I think that's, for me, that is the fight I want. I feel like that's something I want to push to the next level and sort of prove I deserve to be amongst them sort of top 10, top 5 guys.
Yeah, that's a fight I want to see. I got to be honest. That sounds like a bit of a banger, as it were. But that featherweight division is, once you get up into that sort of top 8, every single guy's got, is there on merit, is there on skill and ability. It's one hell of a division. And then you've got guys like Bryce Mitchell and that who were sort of just outside the top 10, sort of steadily working their way up. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens next with that division. It's a bit unfortunate in a way because I think, like, you're rightly ranked 6 now, but by the time you're able to fight again, you could have gone down a couple of rankings through no fault of your own. But I suppose that's what happens when you're in a division that's so stacked. Let's talk about your most recent fight, which was against Sadiq Yusuf. Got back in April. That's gone really quick.
Yeah, I know.
Seems like not that long ago, doesn't it? Jesus.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I'm just flying by that.
So that went like to the unanimous decision. How did you feel about your performance in that one?
Yeah, it was all right. I think it was sort of everything I expected, other than bit of sort of cardio issues. I mentioned it before we were filming, but where the fights were in the daytime, I kind of didn't adjust my rehydration for the weight cut, and I basically fought 10 pounds lighter than I usually do, and I felt good. I felt good going in, but then I didn't have the energy to sort of keep going. And I realised, obviously, I didn't refuel properly. Obviously, having a shorter time from weigh-in to the fight, I was a bit worried the fight bloated. I didn't want to eat too much. I didn't want to refuel too much. And, yeah, that sort of cost me a bit of cardio.
Yeah, Danny, like just before you came in, actually, mate, Arnold was saying, like, that on that card back in April, obviously, because there was such a group of British names on there. It was the one that they did like prime time British viewing. I think it was on at like 8 o'clock here, so that so that we could all watch the likes of Arnold and Jack Shaw and these guys. Yeah. But like Arnold was saying, he like Jack Shaw fought at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and like that's quite an adjustment to make, isn't it, as a fighter? Because like Arnold's saying there, like the last thing you want to do is fight on a full stomach. So you're kind of in a bit of a tricky situation. Would you have liked to have fought that early in the morning? And also, how would you prepare your fighters for it?
I think now with what Arnold was saying, with all the weight cutting, that is so much more scientific now. Whereas, the way I was doing it was so wrong. So I don't think it would have mattered when I would have fought or how I would have done it. I still would have been doing it wrong to a point. I mean, I fought at sort of different times and stuff like that. I know that this is more of a frequent case. We had it with Modestas fighting out in Dubai, and we was having to get up at like 4 a.m. to train to get his body accustomed to working hard at those hours. Mm-hmm. So, I sort of had some sort of experience regards being closely related to a fighter that's having to adjust for those awkward times. It's just another thing that a fighter has to adjust to. I mean, I think when something's new, it just makes a couple of attempts before you feel that you can get it right. I sort of understand it's a balancing act, isn't it? You don't want to go in there bloated, which is terrible. I've done that myself. But consequentially, if you don't refuel enough, you start to feel that in the later rounds. It's a really hard one to judge. It's a difficulty, but it's a difficulty that all the fighters have to face. So it's kind of still fair dues all round at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone's on the same sort of situation, isn't they? So
yeah, not easy.
How did you find it, Arnold? So did you just not really eat much at all before, and then
literally just after the weigh-in, I did my sort of normal routine with the shakes, the rehydration shakes, and the same sort of food and snacking, but I just didn't have like a big dinner, and then obviously I didn't really eat a breakfast before the fight. I didn't, just little things like that. Where usually I'm eating big all the night because I got the whole morning to sort of digest it, and then by lunchtime I'm back to normal. And then you're fighting sort of 7 p.m. earliest, really, at 6-7 p.m. So
Did you have a discussion with the crew that there? In UFC you have someone that plans out all your meals, don't you? Well, we did when we was in Dubai. Did they give you much sort of advice on how to change things up?
There was, but I didn't actually use their team. I used someone else, and they were giving me a lot of food and stuff, and I was just a bit worried to eat it, to be honest. They would bring me big meals to eat, but I was like, it's 8 a.m. If I eat this big bowl of this breakfast food they got me here, and I'm fighting in a few hours, I'm like, So I was maybe a bit worried myself, just not to. I was thinking about it too much, maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's an issue. So did you find it affected you in the fight, in the latter stage of that fight? Because obviously the fight went the distance. Did you find yourself a little bit sapped of energy towards the end?
Yeah, just fatigue, really. And in the camp, I hadn't really had an issue. Like the cardio had been great. We've been doing all the right things and all the conditioning drills and everything that you normally do to be in shape and everything. So I was a bit concerned in the third round, but it actually took me a minute to figure out what happened. But
And Arnold, I've been fatigued different ways in my fights. One time I was fatigued with the literal cardio aspect. Where the pace was just running really fast and hard. And I've had it where that when my weight cut wasn't quite on point as I would have it back then. Sometimes I'd notice that my muscles just weren't right. Which way round was it for you? Was it the cardio? Was it a collective of everything, or was it your muscles feeling like they was lacking?
It was just if anything, it was just the energy. Like I just didn't feel like I had that the sugars sort of in me just like to keep pushing, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But it was a weird one because I didn't feel like cardio was the issue. I just maybe like you said, the muscles, everything was just sort of didn't have glycogen in my muscles where I didn't refuel properly. Yeah, I think that was the issue.
Yeah, do you remember having the thoughts in there? Like, was it more when you went back, or was it actually in the rounds when you had these sort of like thoughts? And in which case, how did you sort of like strategize for that? Because obviously you've got to start thinking about what kind of delivery of combos you're going to do and stuff like that. Was this something that was playing on your mind during the actual event as it was playing out?
Yeah, of course. So I think I broke my hand in the fight as well, and I think it was the first round I broke it. And then coming out in the third round, I was like, okay. So I'm feeling fatigued. My hands, like when in the fight you hurt something, it just sort of you feel it swelling up. It's getting hot, and I'm like, oh, there's something going on there. But so I just in the third round, I knew I was a bit tired, and my hand was injured. So I was thinking just to sort of get the little wins. And actually, funnily enough, he started clinching with me, trying to sort of take me down. And I was like, okay, I'll go clinch. I was like, I'll take a 10-second on the cage for it. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. That is. Gaz in the YouTube chat, he said, can't wait to see Triple A back in the octagon. When does he think is a realistic time span to get in the title picture? I'll put him on the spot.
So I've got an 8-fight win streak at the minute. Currently put me number 6. I think if I fight upwards, if I can beat 2 more guys, then there'd be no reason why not. Especially if they ever get that Korean zombie fight with a win over him, and then 1 more win after that, I don't see why not.
I think like on that win streak that you're on already, I do think you can't be that far off, even though you're ranked 6th rather than say 2nd or 3rd or whatever. But also, I then look at maybe Leon Edwards not getting a title shot yet, and you just think, well, no, maybe there's not a tried and tested way that they judge it in terms of who they put in the title
It's a funny division as well, because obviously you got Volkanovski's the champion, you got Holloway, who's pretty much guaranteed a title shot if he wants it, Ortega, Rodriguez, they all recently fought for the title. And then there's a load of surging guys coming through that are pushing for that top 5 spot sort of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be. It is going to be fascinating to see. Like that, as soon as you said Korean Zombie, I was like, yeah, that's the fight I want to see. That's the one that really sort of sticks out for me. But like, how do you go about preparing for a guy like that who's just super talented, but also is like really game?
Yeah,
and like he will stand and bang with you. He's got a lot of skills in different areas, but also, he has been stopped and he has been knocked out, so he's not kind of invincible. He's not a guy, he's taken a lot of damage, but he's not a guy who we've seen kind of never be stopped. Like, how do you prepare for that?
I've been watching him for years. I'm a massive fan of Creasy, so I feel like I know what he does already just through being a fan, so without studying his fights or anything, I've been watching and I know what he does. I'm well prepared already just for being a fan of his.
Don't that play on your psyche a little bit? The thought and the prospect of fighting someone that you've been watching and in awe of. I mean, could that not have any negatives regards how you approach this fight?
I thought that when I fought Gilbert Melendez, but it was kind of the same situation with that. I was a big fan of his fights. I watched all of in his Strikeforce days, and I watched all his earlier fights, and you kind of just know the strengths and weaknesses, and you know what works for him and what doesn't. And in a way, I was sort of worried I was going to be a little bit like, oh, I'm a massive fan of this guy, but I never was really. And just sort of spurred me on to try and prove that I was that level. And I'm good enough to be in there, sort of thing.
Yeah. Was there only one fight that you had where, when you beat them, it made you realise, hey, you know what? I'm made of world class caliber.
Yeah.
Was there a point where you're like, wow, you know what? I'm really beginning to believe in myself.
Yeah. I think it was that fight. To be fair, the Gilbert Melendez one, because that was someone I looked up to and I watched his fights, and he was.
I was a big fan of him.
Yeah, that's it.
He had some wars, didn't he, over the years?
Yeah, and I was aware, like, obviously he wasn't the Gilbert Melendez of years before that I was watching, so there was also that. But yeah, you never know until. And obviously he's like a veteran. You never know with those guys.
Yeah.
You get in there sometimes. They're there. There's still that, Clay Guida the other days. You still got it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then you look at like what Jose Aldo's doing in that division now. Like me and Danny last year, we were sort of saying, "Oh, he
writing him off.
Doesn't look the same."
Really?
He hadn't looked, and he's just gone on this crazy run now. It's
I think I
really
did the same
impressive.
thing. Yeah, I did the same thing.
But you judge it, don't you? You judge it on what you see, and as soon as he dropped down to bantamweight, it's just looks just a different fighter again.
Yeah,
so it's going to be really fascinating to see. I want him to go on like a massive winning streak, win the title, and then he can Jack Shaw will beat him at some point. That'll suit me down to the ground.
I don't think Aldo ever beats Peter Yan.
No, I don't either. But
it would be cool to see him be champion. I just think that style is a bad style for Aldo.
Yeah. And Peter Yan is like just an absolute animal.
Yeah, he
He's
is
just a killer. Reese in the Facebook chat, he says fighters usually say if they break something, adrenaline kicks in, so they feel nothing. Does that make the pain worse afterwards once the adrenaline wears off?
Yeah. It was. I just explained it like it just felt hot. When you break something, it just feels like it's just that area is hot and there's something going on there. But so it's been what 7 months, 8 months since the fight, and I'm still not cleared to fight or train 100% yet. So I think I made it worse.
Was it quite a nasty break? Yeah.
Yeah, there was. So it was basically mismanaged as well. So there was 3 breaks, a ligament tore off in my wrist, and I haven't had surgery or anything through advice of the doctors I'm seeing. But that's what's making it take so long. But so the original scans, they missed the breaks, and I kind of carried on training around it and making it worse and worse and worse. And then I went back a few months later to get another scan, and they're like, hang on a minute, there's a few breaks in there. So yeah, just mismanaged and bad luck, I guess.
Oh, mate, I've actually been through that myself with my back, and it's frustrating, should we say?
Yeah.
Aidan in the YouTube chat, he says, "Does it bother you that you haven't had a finish for a while? Does that get in your head? Does that get in your head a bit? Because I think your performances have been exceptional, so I don't I can understand if it did as well."
Yeah, definitely, it does, definitely. Like I always want to be a finisher. I think every fighter wants to be a finisher, but I was looking for it in my last fight, and then I hurt myself. So, but maybe I'm just not meant for it. But yeah, it's. I think with the style of fighters I was fighting, my first few UFC fights, they were guys that were going to try and put me on the fence, wrestle me, take me down, sort of stall, and all those things. And I played a very sort of counter defensive game, which didn't really allow me to pursue the finish and chase for that and show my sort of full striking ability and the power and all that. But then with Sadiq, I think we were quite evenly matched in the striking, and you know what he's going to do. He's going to come and try and take your head off. So I was pretty confident someone like that, I was going to get a knockout. But obviously I dropped him twice, and he's tough as old boots. He just kept coming back. But yeah, so I do think with the right matchups, those finishes are going to come.
But also, Danny, it is important for fighters to be able to show that they can do 3-round, 5-round fights and go the distance. Because how many times over the years have we seen fighters come in to the UFC or wherever and go on like a bit of a win streak, but also they're finishing guys within a minute or 2 minutes. And then when they finally come up against the top level guy, or someone who's got a different skill set, and they take them past that first couple of minutes, they struggle. Like, look at Francis Ngannou. Like, he tore through everyone in that heavyweight division, and then it was only when he got past that initial 1 or 2 minutes that he got kind of shown up a little bit, and then he had to go away and come back, and obviously he's come back stronger. But it's just as important to be able to take someone the distance and show that you can do that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. If you have a look at Johnny Walker, I think it was a classic example of it. He was sort of blowing everyone out of the water. I thought he had a bit of an awkward, not only style, but body composition, being so tall, so rangy. People were just getting caught out by, the whole height and the range of him, and the kind of crazy approach that he had to striking. But I don't know whether you want to say he got found out, but people kind of figured a way around it. I don't know. And he suddenly struggled. I mean, he was looking unstoppable, wasn't he, in his first handful of fights? But, he's had some difficulties lately. And I'm still not 100% convinced by him now. I think he's definitely, someone that's going through a lot of changes in developing, his skill sets. And I think he's only ever going to get stronger. But, yeah, I just think that really sums up the kind of subject that we're talking about regards trying to get actual cage time. It can also go against you too. You don't want to be in too many wars that are drawn out, and having a lot of 3 and 5 round fights where you're slugging at it. So there is a time and a place where I think in your career where these stoppages by submission, by TKO and KO, referee stoppage, however you want to see the stoppages, I think they can serve your career well. But yeah, I think when you're still gaining experience, there's nothing like a bit of cage time, especially on the height of UFC. Look at Paddy Pimblett. He come in, looks always super confident, but without a doubt he had some nerves in there. And I think knocking up a few rounds on this new sort of like world stage is nothing but a good thing for people.
Absolutely, mate, 100%. Okay, so sorry. What have you been doing with your kind of downtime then, Arnold? Obviously, I'm assuming you've been trying to sort of keep fit and training and doing as much as you can around your injury. But what do you do like outside of MMA? What sort of interests you got?
Not a lot really. Eating is my only interest really. Eating food and that's it. That's about
I suppose though, when you're a fighter and you're like you obviously got to be quite strict and stuff on food and whatnot to make weight. When you have the opportunity to maybe get stuck in and have a bit of food that you can't normally have or whatever it may be, you got to enjoy it, haven't you? While you can, otherwise it's
that's it. Make the most of it.
Yeah.
What is the food like out in Canada? Is it much different from we have back here? Or?
Yeah, it's weird. I had their like breakfast. They have always, like if you go for a full English breakfast, they have on the side of it. They'll have a garnish of fruits. You have like pancakes with it or something. It's a bit different, but it's I kind of like it. But it is a bit weird having sausage, bacon, and eggs with a couple of pancakes on the side.
Nice.
That's pretty much how they do it in America, isn't it? They're big on their old pancakes. Yeah. I know every time I go out to the States, I come back about 4 kilos heavier.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable what they consume.
They've got some good food.
Yeah. And your food weakness, what's your weakness food? Because you say you like your grub. Have you got like a sinful food that you shouldn't be having that's your treat?
It's KFC. I love KFC, to be
fair. Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. I'm cheap and cheerful. I love a KFC.
That's good, though. So, is there much difference in a KFC here to a KFC in, like, the US and Canada? Because I know in the US, you can get, like, mashed potato with your KFC. So, my missus said to me before, like, she said, all right, you got to try this. And we got, like, KFC, like a bucket for us and the kids. And she said, right, you have this. And I got some mashed potato and the KFC gravy. And I tried it. And I got to say, it was absolutely unbelievably good. I was very, very surprised because it wasn't like what I would have put together.
Yeah.
But apparently it's like, I know you can get mashed potato and KFC. What's the differences like to the menu and stuff?
It's, so where I am in Canada, I'm in Quebec. And everything there, because of the French thing, it's all a bit different. So KFC there is called PFK. I think it's Poulet Fried Kentucky or something.
Okay.
But I don't ever get the KFC there because it's not good. It's not good there in Quebec. I don't know about the rest of Canada, but yeah, where I am, it's not that good.
It's not good.
Yeah,
No,
which
there
is
you go.
that's the first thing I do when I get back home. I go and get KFC.
That's it. I like it.
I find it a bit hit and miss. Sometimes, like when I don't know, sometimes for me, I'm just in the mood for a bit of old junk food.
Yeah,
And they're the times when I've enjoyed my KFC. But if I ever like have it more than once in a month, I just
really?
sometimes come up a cropper sometimes, and you
Oh,
just wonder whether it's actual chicken you're eating or not.
yeah.
Sometimes it's just like awful.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
There's that. Well, there's always that thought, though, and there is this. Is this chicken? But
I'm just
I gotta say,
sure.
it is. I gotta say, as junk food goes, it's pretty good. Although I'm on a Taco Bell run at the moment since I had my birthday exactly a month ago yesterday.
Right.
I had my first Taco Bell because there was one like 10 minutes from my house, like one of the first in the UK, and I just can't stop eating it every time. It's like every time we're like, oh, it's a bit late and we haven't got time to make some in, or we're out and about. It's like Taco Bell. They got all these points stacked up. I can't stop eating the thing.
Really?
There we go. It's ruining my stomach, but there we go.
Okay.
It tastes so good. And now the discussion's gone to junk food and food in the chat now. Reese says, what's your fight camp diet? What's that look like?
Well, so pretty bland, really. I have 6 days of the week I eat clean through the camp. They have a lot of sort of fruits and smoothies because I don't have the worst time losing the weight, so I'm sort of able to keep the carbs and sugars. Maybe a bit of luck with my metabolism, but every Saturday after my last session of the week, I have a cheat day and I will eat whatever I want. I'll eat as much as I want, whatever I want, and it's usually some sort of fried chicken. There's a Korean fried chicken place I go to pretty much every week when I'm out there, and I'll eat so much. I eat that. I'll go get cakes, eat crap every Saturday, pretty much all the way until about 2 weeks before the fight.
Nice, like it. Brad Baston on Facebook says, Arnie, who do you want to face next in the featherweight division? Obviously, we talked about that a few minutes ago, where you said Korean Zombie. So let's take Korean Zombie out of the mix. Let's say he's fighting someone else, or you can't fight him. If there was someone else, who would you think you'd like to go up against?
A lot of people kept suggesting Brian Ortega as well. A lot of people suggested that after his last fight. That'd be a really good fight. Obviously, he's quality. But yeah, that'd be I want to fight upwards, obviously, always. Always the plan is to go upwards. If there's ever a possibility to take a step upwards and fight someone above me, that's always what I want to do.
If you're going
to find it,
go on, Dan.
Sorry, I was going to say, how do you find that? Because for everyone that's fighting a position up, obviously the reverse is happening for your opponent.
Yeah,
if it's that way around, could this be a bit demotivating for you if you know you're facing someone that's a couple of positions lower than you?
Yeah, I see what you mean. But I think once you're in the top 10 rankings, all the guys are proven. They're all good. They're all elite. They're all elite. They're all deserving to be there. So I don't think it's ever bad to fight someone one down. But yeah, if you want to get, in my mind, obviously, I want to get closer to the title, and the way to do that is beating someone that's closer than I am. But yeah,
Gaz in the YouTube says, if you could fight one featherweight, past or present, who would it be?
One featherweight, past or present.
There's so many to choose from.
I'll go with Volkanovski because he's the champ now.
See, every time that question gets asked, everyone says Conor McGregor, don't they? That seems to be the one that everyone turns to.
Oh, yeah.
But because they think it's big payday, that's why.
Yes, that's it.
Not because of fighting him.
Yeah,
it's the money fight. But
It's good for the bank.
Volkanovski.
But Volkanovski, I mean,
like
he looked incredible in his last performance. So,
Yeah.
how would you go around tackling? If it's something you would be willing to discuss, not everyone likes to discuss their potential tactics on facing anyone, but more to the point. Then let's just add in. Where would you say his area of weaknesses, where you feel you could target something that might fracture his style?
Yeah, he's a weird one because he's not like the most impressive with his skill set, like his striking,
I agree that
jiu-jitsu, his wrestling, but his strategy is pretty much on the money. Like I think you'd have to out-strategize him. You'd have to figure him out, and you'd have to beat him at his own game, sort of thing. I think he's a very difficult guy to go in there and I'm just gonna outwork him or I'm gonna outdo this. He's fit as they come, and he's always got a smart game plan, and he sticks to it to a T. Like the first fight with Holloway was just kicking his leg. Every time he stepped in, he kicked his leg.
Yeah.
He doesn't really get dissuade from the game plan either. He doesn't get dragged away from it with a bit of a brawl. He'll sort of stick to it, whatever's happening. So yeah, I think out strategizing him would be the way, really.
Right.
Is that is that the same for like Korean Zombie, who obviously you said earlier on you'd fancy fighting? Is that the same sort of tactics you'd like to go up against him?
Yeah, 100%. And he's also kind of, the nickname makes sense, doesn't he? Like he kind of comes out to fight and he goes with however the fight goes. It doesn't seem to have sort of like a plan other than to sort of knock you out or submit you. So yeah, he's like Brian Ortega kind of proved that when he fought him, and Ortega didn't really do anything different than he usually does. He just sort of moved around a little bit more, and Korean Zombie didn't really adjust to it at all.
No, he didn't at all. So just before we let you go, Arnold, because I know you got to be up super early tomorrow for training and stuff. We play something called the one-word game. So basically, I give you about 8 names from the world of combat sports, and then you just have got to say the first thing which comes to mind when you hear that name. So yeah, let's see. I don't know why it's called the one word game. We need to think of a better name for it because it's not the one word game. But here we go. So the first name on the list is Conor McGregor.
Ireland. Do I have to give a one-word answer?
No, you don't have to. Just literally the first thing that you think of when you hear that name, basically. Dana White.
UFC.
Paddy the Baddie.
Liverpool. I'm going with one-word answers.
There we go.
That's all right.
Jake Paul.
Ooh. YouTube.
Jack Shaw.
Wales.
Canelo Alvarez.
Horses, because I always see on his Instagram he's always riding horses and stuff.
A new one. That's a new one, that is, for him. Tyson Fury.
What was the car he posted the other day? First thing, him in his car, he was in the car with his dad. He bought like a little estate with him. What is it? It was an old Mercedes estate thing, and he put a funny video up. It cracked me up.
And then the final name on the list is Volkanovski.
Champ. The champ. He's the champ.
For now.
For now.
Listen, Arnold, really appreciate you finding a time for us, mate, and fitting us in.
That's right, mate.
You got to be up super early tomorrow, so appreciate you.
Man, now. I'm going to go to bed. It's nearly 9.
It's nearly 9 o'clock. Time for bed. No. Appreciate you finding the time, mate. Honestly,
no problem at all.
We'll definitely get you back on next year, and
of course.
Hopefully, we'd either have a fight set or you'll have just won another fight. So either way, it'll be exciting time.
Thank you.
But you have a good Christmas, mate, and we'll speak to you in the new year. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
See you,
cheers, Arnold. Cheers, buddy.
Arnold Allen, another top name from the world of combat sports, Danny.
And I think, he is. And I think he's the first person to ever do a description for each person with one word.
Yeah, that's it, mate. That's it.
Yeah, it was sharp.
We've had a couple lately who've been quite quick and have said like the first thing which comes to mind. But I think he is the first one to do it one word all the way around.
He just smashed it out.
Indeed, but
No problem for him.
Yeah, so just a sort of quick scheduling notes. So we have got a guest next week, another top guest, may I add. And then the following week after that there'll be no show because it's Boxing Day. I believe it's Boxing Day. I'm terrible with dates. And then the week after that, I think I'm going to put out some footage and a compilation of different guests we've had and stuff. So basically there'll be no live show for 2 Sundays, and then we will be back the following Sunday and we'll be back with a bang. Got some people lined up and waiting for January, and that's some good stuff. But it's going to be very interesting for the rest of this show tonight, because we've got a little bit more time than usual, which we're going to need, because we got the UFC 269 to talk about, and of course we've got the Cage Warriors Double Trouble, and there was also a little bit of boxing. So yeah, the boxing we're going to keep relatively general, just because Ben's not with us, so it's a bit more difficult to fit it all in.
I'm so gutted. I was really hoping he could come on, because I really wanted to know. I wanted someone of more boxing note to break down how Lomachenko was doing what he was doing. I mean, I've seen this guy box before, but my goodness, at that level, I just don't understand how he's doing what he's doing. It's just to behold. It really is.
I've seen a few people still sort of not giving him the credit that he deserves. Really unbelievable.
How?
I want to see him versus Kambosos anyway. That's the fight I want to see him from that division. Conor Benn last night was sensational. I got to say, I thought he was absolutely superb. Just completely, really stepped up to the plate. And him. I know. Eddie Hearn said afterwards he wants him to fight Broner in his next fight. But Conor Benn said he wants to fight Amir Khan or Kell Brook. To me, I'd much rather see him fight Broner than either of the other two. But maybe that's just because I'm a bit no, I'm not interested in Kell Brook versus Amir Khan at all. But I'm sure it'd be a very good fight either way. Katie Taylor won her boxing as well. Joe Cordina. Yeah, there was some really good fights. I haven't been able to even watch all the boxing. I've watched bits of them. And would you believe it? After we made Ben preview Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, because he didn't want to do it, we made him preview it, and then Tommy Fury pulled out. So it's now a Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley rematch, which is But fair play to Tyrone Woodley. He stepped in on 2 weeks' notice, less than 2 weeks really, and he's also gets $500,000 bonus if he stops Jake Paul. So
in other words, they're trying to encourage him to actually go in there and fight, because I'm sorry, I've been a fan of his in the past.
They haven't obviously watched his MMA fights.
His last number of MMA fights, the boxing match that he did, was utterly boring. And I know there will be people who perhaps won't agree with what I'm saying for whatever reasons, but I would strongly still disagree with them and say that he's just boring. It's just, I can't see why would they want to get that one back on.
Tyrone Woodley does not have the fire in his hands that he had 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
I don't know what's
on his way
wrong.
to getting the UFC championship. He was knocking people out for fun.
Yeah,
and he was knocking people out with one punch. These days, and even after he won that title, since the second Wonder Boy fight, he never looked like finishing Wonder Boy, and he just never looked the same after that. I
agree.
It was like he was almost too scared to put it out there and take a risk in case he got caught. So, and then when I saw the way he boxed against Jake Paul, he, as someone of his level, who's fought at such a high level for all his career, even though boxing isn't his sport necessarily, he should have been stopping Jake Paul, and he should have been looking to stop Jake Paul. And at no point did I feel, I think there was that one point when they're towards the end of the fight where he rocked Jake Paul a little bit, but that was the only time he even looked in a bit of a hurry to to do anything. It was just waste of time. Not interested in that at all.
It just didn't look like he was trying to ever try to win any of the last number of fights that he's ever had. Just doesn't look like, I don't know what he seems to be waiting for a knockout just to happen. I don't know whether they expect him to run their face up against his fist rather than the other way around, but it's bizarre performance. I find it utterly frustrating. And I'm not saying that everyone, when they compete, should be having a throwdown fest and just slugging it out. I'm not saying that that's the case, but come on, at that level where he's world class, surely he could get himself set up with his footwork and range and distancing to throw some meaningful shots that make it look like he's trying to win the bout. Surely he's going to be able to create those opportunities to let it go, so to speak. I don't know. I just, it doesn't interest me. In fact, I would like to see him lose.
The thing is, from a business point of view, like the last thing anyone should want to do, they shouldn't want Jake Paul to lose to Tyron Woodley now, because that makes, for all those people who are going to make money from it, that's the worst possible outcome for them, for Tyron Woodley to knock him out. What they really need him to do, they need Jake Paul to knock or to beat Tyron Woodley quite convincingly, so that they can then sell Jake Paul, whether it's against Tommy Fury or someone else next year, as the next big fight. So it'd be quite interesting to see what comes about of it and whether, it does go. But like Lee there says, he says, you can't teach natural power, but life does catch up with you. Fights will be totally different. He says a boxer will always win, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Welsh boxer Joe Cordina, I mentioned, won last night. He defeated Belgium's. Oh my God, I'm not going to try and even pronounce that guy's surname out of respect.
Go on, do it. Try.
Miko Kachacharian to claim so he won the WBA Continental Super Featherweight title. All three judges awarded the fight to Cordina, but I thought he was I saw highlights of it and he thought he looked really good. But that's been building for him. I've been impressed with him since he beat Gavin Gwynn. It must be like 2.5, 3 years ago now, which is unbelievable because it was pre-COVID. But he's been impressive since then with each fight and stuff. Katie Taylor, like, I got to be honest, women's boxing to me doesn't have the same luster as women's MMA. Like, it's not as competitive to me. There seems to be, and people who know it better than me will be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but in women's boxing there does seem to be like a group of, or a handful of women who are like the best boxers, and then it's just kind of them versus the other people in their division who are nowhere near their standard. Like Katie Taylor's been sensational. She's won everything, all the different titles, and WBO, IBF, WBC, all these different titles. But it is what it is. Lee says Cordina ruled that fight, but the opposition was no mug. It's Katie Taylor. Like, you can't knock her. Like, she has beaten everything in front of her. She's easily, and I think it's Lee just said in the comments there, is easily the best female fighter of all time. Like, I would agree with that 100%. However, for instance, in MMA, like Amanda Nunez, literally, if you had asked me a month ago if she was going to lose, I would have said she will never lose. The only person she could lose to is Shevchenko. And so much of that is based on if she catches her and stuff because of the weight difference and the strength difference. And yet last night she got beaten by someone who I would have never, ever, 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 ever given a chance of beating her. It's just the way of the fight world. But in MMA, there seems to be the women underneath the top level, shall I say, seem to be a higher level, and they seem to be getting better. I'm not seeing that in women's boxing. I do think that's what women's boxing needs, is like an influx of really good fighters coming up to challenge people like Katie Taylor. But look, you cannot knock Katie Taylor. She can only fight what is available to fight, and she does it exceptionally well. She has been tested by a few different women, and look, you don't win every title available if you're not good at what you do,
regardless
of the depth of the opposition. There is a few good boxers in there at least, and I just think she's exceptional. And she's been a game changer as well for women's boxing in terms of like how she's taken it forward. Without Katie Taylor, I don't believe that women's boxing would be on the same cards as the men's boxing and on these big shows. If there's no Katie Taylor, I don't believe that happens.
Yeah, I think with the women's boxing, I think the reason why it struggled was because even the men's boxing was struggling. You had a couple of horrendous decisions over a nice number of years, which made people so frustrated watching it. There just was not a lot happening, was there? For a big spell. It seems to have really been ignited in sort of like the last couple of years. It seems to have really got some trajectory going now. There's a lot of interest swirling around the boxing again, and I feel like we're on the cusp of a new potential era for boxing at the minute. And maybe with that, then the female exposure might be reignited in a way that it makes a bigger difference. But I think with the MMA, it's been on such a sharp incline of popularity and just being known out there in the masses. If you go and ask anyone on the street now about do you know who Conor McGregor is, they'll know who he is, whereas years before that would never have been the case. The UFC now, MMA in general, is known in every household. They'll know something about it, something about someone, and they'll indeed probably know someone who trains it or competes in it in some kind of level, whether that be amateur or pro. It's run a real fast incline of popularity. You also got more shows as well that are not necessarily challenging UFC because the world's a big place, but you got One Championship, you got Bellator, you've got these other shows that are putting on huge spectacles and really interesting bouts, and I think that's what helped the females in terms of the MMA. I think it's got such forward trajectory. It was naturally going to get great exposure, and I think it's been such a good thing bringing the females into UFC. So for me, it's made it so much more interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, they're two human beings with two arms, two legs, and a head getting in there trying to find ways to win over each other. But I do see different style of MMA, like what I spoke about with the different weights. So the women do have a different style of fighting when they fight off with each other than the men do. So I think it's been, a huge benefit to MMA to have the female getting as much publicity and attention as they have been. Do you remember me saying to you that about the how I saw
the MMA styles and that?
You look at the bantamweights and then you look at anyone sort of like middleweight and above. I mean, that's literally, it's different MMA. Yes, the same rules, but it doesn't look the same. It's it's contested totally differently.
Like I just said about like Katie Taylor. Without Katie Taylor, there wouldn't women's boxing wouldn't be where it is in terms of the mainstream and things like that. With MMA, that's Ronda Rousey. If Ronda Rousey hadn't have been around at the time Ronda Rousey was around, say what you like about her since, and look, she got found out by more skilled opponents eventually. But when she came onto the scene, she is the reason that the women were on the UFC shows, because so many people were getting at Dana White saying, "Get Ronda Rousey on there, get Ronda Rousey on there." Eventually, she got him on there. And she did amazing things for a couple of years. And she was, she's a mainstream actress and all this, the rest of it now. But like, you've got to, I also believe that if Ronda Rousey hadn't eventually been beaten and had opponents that challenged her and beat her and whatnot and made those decisions deep and strong, it's difficult, isn't it? Because all fighters age eventually. And with like Katie Taylor needs opponents now and needs someone to take on women's boxing when she retires. They need to be more names coming forward. And like Lee was saying in the chat there, he's got he trains boxers and he's got a young female who's like a 3-time novice champion. She's just won the Welsh Championships and silver for the British. So he said the females are coming on strong. And I think that's what women's boxing particularly, but also women's MMA, that's what they need. So it's going to be interesting. to see like how that develops. Gaz says, Danny, that the reason why boxing has got a bit of a upward trajectory is because of Jake Paul.
I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, obviously, in some sorts, it has.
I think he's saying it tongue in cheek. However,
yeah, maybe so.
What he has done is, if you look at the average pay-per-view numbers, he's probably brought them up. So we'll give him that credit, I guess.
Yeah,
and we'll go from there. We'll go from there. So, right, let's have a look. So, where to start? Let's talk UFC first, mate, because there was someone Brad asked a question. He asked a couple of questions, so I want to put those to you very quickly, because we're not going to be able to go fight by fight with everything because it's just so much stuff. But Brad says, Danny, what do you think of Cody Garbrandt's mistakes last night for the early exit? Do you think he's starting to decline?
Yeah, I do think it's starting to decline. There's definitely an issue regards him being able to be knocked out a little easier than perhaps we had seen previously. I wonder whether he's got the same passion for it. You know, I don't see him engaging with the same. I don't know, the ferocity that we saw. There's something amiss. He's misfiring somehow, some way. I just think, to be in there at the highest level, you've got to be absolutely sucking it up and living every moment of the process of MMA. And I just feel like he hasn't, or he's no longer doing that. But we can't take anything away from Cara France. I mean, what an amazing performance. Really, really was good. But as for Cody, I don't know, where does he go from here? Where does he go? I'm just not sure.
Do you know, he's not the first active fighter who's started doing punditry and analysis on the shows, and then when he's come back to fight, hasn't quite looked the same. And I do wonder, like you said, something which stuck out for me there. You said he doesn't look as if he's got the passion for it anymore that he once had. But when you listen to him talk about it, and when he does his analysis, I think his analysis is really good. His top draw.
Yeah.
So he's clearly got the passion for that.
Yeah. I mean,
has he got the passion for the training and the early mornings,
exactly,
and the weight cuts? Well, that's
I mean, the passion
together, I suppose, isn't it?
It can sit in two lanes. I mean, you can be passionate all day long regards following it and loving what it's about and who's fighting who and so on, and breaking down the analysis. You know, I'm the same. I love to break down the fights and look into it in detail. You know, but I no longer have the passion to compete. I just feel like he just hasn't got that extra little bit, and whether it was the fact that he's adding other strings to his bow that surround the whole MMA in terms of what it offers you for a career, maybe it is down to that. I don't know, but something seems amiss. I think he's looked better in the past, and I think for a long time now we haven't seen him produce the kind of successes we've seen him from the past, and I do think he's on his way out, unfortunately.
Look, I thought he made some mistakes last night as well, which caused him to get finished and the way he did. I thought he made some really big mistakes. So just having another look at it there, like his defense to that sort of those three shots that he took that kind of finished him was non-existent for someone of his standard. Like his head movement was just nothing. His head was just completely static, and he took shots from three different angles. And didn't move his head once. So I understand he got caught with the first one, but he didn't get finished by the first one either. So like he wasn't knocked out. But he was clearly stunned, and his head movement was poor. But
I'm just reviewing it back to see what you mean by their head movement.
By the way, Cara France is no mug, mate. By the way, really good young fighter coming. You know, looks like he could do some stuff. But Cody Garbrandt at the top of his game would expect to beat Cara France, and he didn't. You would think so. I mean, as well, there's a big physicality difference there. You know, walking in that cage on this day, he looks considerably bigger. Yes,
but he didn't strategize right to make that count. You know, it would have been nice for perhaps if he got in clinching and dirty boxed it and got the knees going and just lean on him a little bit up against the fence.
I'm sorry,
Cara France is so fast. Go on.
Just before the finishing sequence, Cody Garbrandt is backing up, like he's visibly
He
like
runs away.
he's running away from him. But while he's doing it, he's egging him on, like calling him on with his one hand.
Yeah.
And then he gets cracked 3 times. He just looks silly, mistakes all around, mate. Very disappointed.
Well, we've seen it before where he gets clobbered and he starts trying to get into like a street brawl. Yeah. And it's
Car France was too clever for that, though, wasn't he?
Absolutely was. And because he's slightly smaller built, he bases a lot of his successes on being super fast. And I think that the whole speed was just something that Cody couldn't read into. But you're absolutely right with your observation there of his head being static, especially for that sort of weight division. In that weight division, you need to be elusive on your feet, and you need to have some head movement as well. You have to locate yourself well in the cage at all times. And you're right, his head was rather static, almost like he was emulating someone of a higher weight. A little strange.
Couple of comments from Brad to follow up on the Garbrandt when he says dropping a weight can obviously go either 2 ways, but he says even at bantamweight now there's so many strongly ranked fighters, and Cody losing especially 3 in a row is worrying. Don't really know who he's going to fight next.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know where he goes from here, because if motivation and passion is something of an issue, he's hardly going to get up for it more by fighting lower ranked people, is he? I think this could be the beginning of the end, and I don't want to be, negative in my thinking on my approach.
You said that about Jose Aldo.
I did, that's what I mean. I don't want to stick my head out too far with this. I mean,
I'm only playing with you, but
I understand.
He does look like he's
but you're right. We did say this about Jose Aldo. I mean, he went through a real tricky patch, didn't he?
You said it. It's your name on the show.
I'm sure you agreed with it strongly, and
I did.
who knows? But the level's nuts out there, and you can't miss a beat, and he seems to be missing a beat.
You can't make those mistakes on a UFC main card against ranked fighters. Like that is like head movement. Come on, to me, like you correct me if I'm wrong. That's kind of like basic stuff, isn't it? Like head movement.
I mean, it's
relatively
advanced.
basic. I mean, like it's not.
It's advanced, but absolutely, it's a must-have for this level of competition.
Yeah.
And have you not noticed as well in sort of like the last 18 months, 2 years in UFC, the striking has just gone through the roof.
No, mate, the standard generally is just so good. Like you can't make those. Even if you don't want to call it basic errors, but you can't make those errors where you might get away with that on a regional show or a smaller show, or against a fighter who's not as experienced or not as good. You might get away with it. But you won't get away. You can't get away with those mistakes at the top level. And
you made an interesting observation as well. It goes to show you're getting around this UFC and this whole MMA thing. You was messaging with me,
mate. Just fun.
About the Cage Warriors, and you were saying about how the level now is just so solid with each fighter in every range. And when I'm talking about range, I'm talking about striking, the wrestling, and the grappling. That's just so high level in all arenas. No one really has a set weakness as such anymore, do they?
The thing which stuck out for me about the Cage Warriors show, mate, is there was a couple of fighters on there who, at the last time they fought, they had some quite glaring mistakes, and they had addressed them, and improved. Like Liam Gittins, just off the top of my head, was one who, he looks dangerous fighter, got a hell of a chin on him, all the good stuff. But the last 2 fights at the last 2 trilogies he fought at, he's come steaming out. And he's made mistakes, and I think he won one and got knocked out in the other one, where he was just steaming in and he just wouldn't stop. And this time around, he still was pouring the pressure on, but he was doing it in a conservative way, and he was patient,
calculated,
and he just looked 10 million times the more dangerous fighter, because he's got the skills, he's got a hell of a chin on him, he's got the ability, but he was making errors which were causing him to risk getting knocked out in a firefight that didn't need to happen, or he did the one time. And there was a couple of fighters like that. which I'll go back to that. I want to just flip over to Amanda Nunez quickly, and then we'll go through a couple of the UFC fights. Brad said the Nunez fight was a total shock for me. She gave her back too easily. Also looked to me like she didn't take it serious enough, maybe the training camp, etc. But who knows? And then he just said again, he says, switching back over to Nunez, he said it was probably the biggest upset ever in UFC. Nunez looked like she was taking it easy. Maybe it's just me, but maybe the training camp wasn't as intense as it should have been. She gave it back way too easy for a choke. Look, to me, I think there's a couple of things I will say before I sort of switch to Danny for the more technical side of it. Like, I find it difficult to get into the mindset of a millionaire because I'm not a millionaire. So I find it difficult to kind of think like they can think, like Conor McGregor thinks, like Amanda Nunez thinks, etc. Amanda Nunez done everything she could possibly done. She's beaten everyone. She's beaten some unbelievable people. So to me, I think it would be difficult to just keep fighting these girls who you look at and you think, oh, come on, you're not on my level. It's got to be difficult. It's got to be difficult to motivate yourself to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. For just using Arnold as an example, Arnold's on his way up. He's ranked 6. He wants to get that title shot. He wants to get to the top. He wants to get that big money. So tomorrow morning when he's getting up at 4:30, 5 to go training, he wants that. He's hungry for it because he's on his way up, fighting for that, to get that. All the things I just said. Amanda Nunez has been on top for years now, beating everyone comfortably. Like, only 1 or 2 girls have really tested her. So it's got to be difficult. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a rematch and Amanda Nunez absolutely starches her in like a minute. I wouldn't be surprised because I agree with Brad to a certain extent. She did look as if mentally she perhaps wasn't 100% there. But I'm interested in your view of it as you're someone who's fought, trains, you're knee deep in it day in, day out. Like, what did you think of the way she conducted herself, the way she fought, the whole shebang?
Nunez unnecessarily tried to rush, tried to put it away. I think she had expectancy on her shoulders. And it looked like it was going to go the way we've always seen it go. She looked so powerful, so crisp in the first few exchanges. But as soon as Pena started landing some shots, it seemed to aggravate her and just made her try to sprint to the finish line when there's absolutely no need. There's 5 5s at play. She could have just picked her moments during this process and find the safest and possibly quickest route. And when I say quickest, I don't mean in that way. It tried to throw down in the pocket. It was totally unnecessary. It made her begin to gas. It made her get sloppy. And I think that rear naked choke was the fact that she was just physically unable to defend herself anymore. I just think she was so gone and exhausted. I just bewildered at the stupidity, at the inexperience almost. I mean, obviously she's not inexperienced.
Yeah, I know
but
what you mean.
It seemed, and I think it's been so long since she's been hurt, so long since she's been roughed up, that she almost felt insulted and just like a bully, just wanted to start throwing down, throwing back, and was expecting to be able to put Pena away, but it just didn't happen. But wow, I mean, look, we're talking about all the disappointments of Nunez. Let's not take it away from Pena. Pena did amazing. Nunez got so much power, such good technique on the feet. For her to just throw with abandonment down on that centre line and just give as good as she was receiving was really, really courageous. I mean, I reckon they will run this fight again. I reckon they'll run it back straight away. I don't know whether you would agree, but I reckon they will.
Yeah, I think they will probably do it in February.
And if Nunez takes her time, Nunez wins nearly every time. I would still maintain that. But Pena needed to make Nunez run at a pace that she couldn't run with, and Pena drew that out of her. It was kind of like
that, mate. You wouldn't have expected, like, if I told you before the fight that Pena's game plan was to kind of gas her out and to take her to the limit and take her 5 rounds, or like all that stuff. Like you just said, all right, there might be a good game plan, but ultimately Amanda Nunez will have too much for her, even over 5 rounds. She has shown, she beat Shevchenko over 5 rounds, didn't she? Who else did she beat?
Yeah.
She beat was it, who did she beat? She beat someone else who I really like, and I can't remember who it was. I'll have to come back to you on that. But she beat them over 5 rounds. Like people have tested her in the past. So for her to your analysis of that was kind of spot on for me. I couldn't quite put my finger on what I thought she did. She just looked frustrated and
she tried to rush.
She made silly errors, which you just don't associate with her.
Yeah, she got drawn into a dogfight, literally. And an interesting thing, if you watch back and watch it in slow motion, Pena was throwing her punches with high elbows, above her shoulder line. And so therefore Nunez mostly was punching with her arms below the arm line when they was trading in the pocket. And it was Pena that was getting access to Nunez's head more often with those combinations. Because that was the thing what was making it consequential, the fact that it was not single hits that landed on Nunez.
Yeah.
It was like a 1-2-3 combination landing, and every one was landing on the button. And the other thing was when Nunez did throw a high elbow shot like an overhand, Pena then threw straight and had the inside line. So she was having to throw over her arm. And so when there was exchange, it seems that Pena just had the better understanding of not quite dirty boxing. Dirty boxing to me is where you're clinched up and you're touching, but that in the pocket trading, she just seemed to be more well versed there. And that might be because she's getting more competitive sparring. Now, can you imagine the kind of sparring with other ladies going in sparring with Nunez? They must be so far worlds apart. She's probably not getting challenged. And so when she was getting challenged on this fight day, where she showed her mistakes, I think it was in perhaps her sparring level that she was up against in training. So I don't think there's anything wrong with her training per se, but I do suspect there were some issues with the caliber of girls that she was perhaps sparring with.
So I just had a look.
That may be
since she beat Ronda Rousey in 2016, she's been taken to decision 3 times, all 5-round fights by Shevchenko, Jermaine Durandamy, and Felicia Spencer. So 3 girls who were, very, very good. So, 5 rounds shouldn't have been an issue for her. She's done it before. So there was no need for her to be rushing in and being frustrated and as if I've got to finish it early because I don't want it to go long and deep. She's done that. She's done it time and time again. 2 of her last 4 fights have gone to decision. So she's not, she's so experienced and she just made some silly errors.
Absolutely, she did. It's like she went backwards in her maturity of experience. If I was in the corner there, I'd be saying for her to get back out of range and collect herself together and remind her that you got 25 minutes to fathom a way to get an outright win or fathom a rhythm that's going to keep stealing the rounds off your opponent. She has all the skill sets and she has the power to do any of those options. She could potentially put that fight away on the ground, on the feet, or at least take those rounds in terms of points. She totally had that capability. Instead, she wanted to play it all with a risk of trading blow for blow. Lessons learned. Let's hope she's learned from it, and she does better next time. But I think they'll run this fight ASAP. I think it's going to get run past again.
So I want to quickly talk about Tai Tuivasa again. Just starched his opponent and I thought this was going to be a really tricky fight for him against Sakai, just because of the height difference. I thought that this might be the one that kind of got him unstuck.
Right.
But the man he just keeps rolling on, mate. Drinking out of his shoe afterwards as well. Gotta love that. But he just keeps going and going and going. Every time I think this is the fight where he's going to come unstuck, because he doesn't look like he's the most technical of fighters.
No.
But what he's got is just knockout power.
Yeah.
And he went into the second round, but once it almost felt like in that first round he was getting his range, because the Sakai is a lot taller than him. He's got a bigger reach than him, so he was finding his range, and he was waiting for the opportunity to get in close so he could finish that fight. And boy, oh boy, once he got in close, doesn't take many of those big shots to finish a fight, and it was all done and dusted in seconds, shall we say?
Yeah.
But he's so exciting to watch, because as soon as he gets in that pocket,
he's going to do some damage, right?
Yeah, man, it's unbelievable. Sugar Sean O'Malley, mate, we've got to talk about him. Gaz has put in the chat, he was absolutely electric. We've talked about how special he is before, but like, what I like about it is he got criticized quite heavily a couple of fights back, just for I don't know, not like maybe his game plan a little bit, and his some of his things he was trying to go to, and maybe trying a bit too hard almost. But like, to me, he just looks like a guy who's just on the up, and this fight was exactly, this was his most definitely his most tricky, difficult fight to date, and he could not have done much more in terms of be impressive or do, like, he couldn't have done anything further to enhance his reputation, I don't think.
Nah, he looked really, really elusive, looked difficult to hit. And when he throws, it just looks like you expect him to land. It literally does look like that. You can see his opponents really struggle to find range on him. I think this is the thing that's making him so effective on the feet. Well, there's a few things that are making it so. He's got the height, he's got the reach, he's got the the twitch fibers. He's obviously very, very quick, got a great sense of his range. But not only that, when someone's trying to attack him, he's got he just latches onto their capabilities of finding their range and then robbing them from that range finding that they need. You can just see they struggle, and not only do they struggle to find their way to get access to him, to make any of their strikes land impactful on him, they're having to do so when he's triggering as they come in as well. He'll fire as they come forward. What a tricky customer he is. I just think stylistically, you're going to have to get someone that throws big bombs that also likes to wrestle and keeps mixing it to try to layer in on him. I think that's the only type of style that's going to work against him right now with what we're seeing from him. But yeah, he's just going from strength to strength, isn't he?
I said to my mate last night when we watched it, like, his footwork and his height, but his footwork is so quick that I think that's what undoes a lot of his opponents. Because like, Paiva's a really good fighter, but he just couldn't get near him. And his footwork, he was so quick at changing the angles. And as soon as he smelt blood, it was gone. It was done. The fight was over before Paiva even had a chance to react, because he caught him on the temple. And by the time he had reacted to that, he'd already changed the angle and hit him twice, 3 times in the pocket and tight. And it was just, he was out then on his feet before he'd even had time to adjust or, to move. So yeah, he just looks like a special talent. And I think
it does.
It's going to take probably someone special to stop him.
It will, for sure.
And I tell you, a fight I'd like to see is him versus Arnold at one point. And if Sean O'Malley keeps climbing, I'd like to see that fight at some point.
Yeah,
in the future.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So very quickly, we've talked about a few of the fights. Just talk about Jeff Neal versus Ponzinibbio. And obviously the main event. I haven't seen the Jeff Neal fight, so I'll leave that one to you. Very quickly, mate.
Yeah. This one was really close. It could have gone either way. I think it was a split decision in the end, wasn't it? Anyways, both looked really, really good. Jeff Neal's composure was epic, really, really epic. He looked slightly the tighter one defensively, but Ponzinibbio was the one that was perhaps being a little bit more proactive with his striking, hacking at the leg. I thought Ponzinibbio may have got the nod, but then the consequential strikes that Jeff Neal was landing were just a little bit more visual in terms of the impact it was having. Ponzinibbio looked kind of rather busted up at the end. Looks a little off balance sometimes when they were trading at the same time. I just thought Ponzinibbio may have gotten a nod because he was landing a lot of inside leg kicks that looked like they were beginning to trouble the footwork of Jeff Neal, not troubling him in terms of like where he was limping or anything like that. But you could tell he was just having a difficult time knowing how to address this issue of that inside leg kick. Both were utterly impressive. If the decision went the other way, it wouldn't have been wrong in my eyes. It was one of those. But both of them performed brilliantly. But as an added little note, I felt like Jeff Neal is improving every fight. And I just think that forward motion of improvement is going to continue. I'm rather impressed with him. The takedown defense of him was really, really good as well. Great work being driven up against the cage to avoid the takedown, and got shot in out in the open as well, and showed again great defense. Very, very impressive. Yeah, I'm going to be watching him more closely after that performance.
And then we had the main event, which was Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier, with Oliveira winning via a rear naked choke in the third round. I saw someone just before this fight actually saying that Conor McGregor would beat Charles Oliveira. And I'll tell you something, mate, okay? Charles Oliveira would absolutely decimate Conor McGregor as he is at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We've seen him recently.
Yeah.
He's just got far too much for him. Could Conor McGregor come back and do something special? Of course he could, but he needs the motivation to do so. And I just don't know if he's got that motivation anymore. But go on.
Yeah, Charles Oliveira was so impressive. His striking's really, really improved. Dustin Poirier, my money would have been on him to win it. I think he's performed so amazingly time and time again. He never really underperforms, does he? He always comes with a solid performance. But the difference between them is Dustin Poirier is more fundamentally strongly structured. He's more predictable in the things that he's going to be doing, whereas Oliveira is more unpredictable. He has some funky submissions. He has a different approach to his striking. He can do a different style of takedown that you won't typically see. He's not somebody who just grinds you up against the fence and drops for a double leg. He's rather creative on how he gets you to the ground. And I think that was ultimately what led to Poirier's undoing, that and the pace. I think the pace was so brutal, and the knees, the layers to Charles' striking was what really was the most impressive aspect of his game. He had really rangy strikes, he had the long range kicks, he had the long range hands. As soon as it got to anything near touching, he was firing off these really visual knees. Really, really looked good. And when it went to the ground, it started up on the feet, didn't it? Got Poirier in trouble. And I've seen Poirier there many times. I've seen him give up his back confidently, defend it, shrug it off, and get back to what he does best, which is his boxing, I would suggest. But no, Charles just never let him off the hook. And he buried in that choke and got the win. Charles is the man at the minute. Charles is the man to beat. And is this the end of Poirier? Absolutely not. Not if you don't want to. He could carry on a fight. He certainly
fight McGregor, mate, to do a trilogy. I could imagine them doing that back again because of the injury.
Absolutely. I don't feel like he lost because he's on a downward slide. Definitely not that. It was just Charles's night on the night. I mean, Charles had to deal with some difficult situations leading up to his win. Poirier rocked him a couple of times in there, and I began to think, Charles is beginning to flag here. He's beginning to go, but no, he come back from it and ended in great emphatic fashion. What a great win to beat Poirier by submission, which is, I'm not too sure whether he's ever been beat by submission, has he, before? I'll have to have a look at his record. I'd be kind of curious to know. But he's so solid, isn't he, all round defensively, regards to submission defense and striking defense. I didn't see it going that way.
Was impressive.
Charles is the dude. Impressive. Charles is the dude. He's absolutely is. Did you see the Josh Emmett fight? Because I've always been a fan of Josh Emmett. That's another one I think people should watch with Dan.
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, how would you pronounce his name? Yeah, that was another really good fight really, really close. Another one that could have gone either or way. Josh Emmett was perhaps trying to knock Dan out a little bit rather than accumulate some combinations to score. Maybe a little bit headhunty. Dan looked good, and so did Josh Emmett. But Josh Emmett's at that age now. I think what is he? He must be touching 36 now, something like that.
He's been submitted loads, mate. Poirier.
Oh, is he? Well, that must have been in his early career, right?
He's submitted by Pettis in 2017.
Right.
Submitted by Khabib in 2019.
Wow. Okay.
Oliveira. Who else has he got? There was someone else as well. I can't remember. I apologize. He beat Pettis, not submitted. Also, no, it looks actually like I read that wrong. He got submitted by Korean Zombie to a Bravo choke.
That's right. I remember now.
So these Korean Zombie and Khabib have beaten him by submission.
Yeah. I mean, up at that level, that's pretty solid.
That's three killers. That is, mate. Isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
that's like three legitimate killers. Right, mate. We've got little time left. There's a couple of questions which I'm going to go to in a minute from Lee and Reese and a couple of guys. But I do want to talk about Cage Warriors, even though we're at a shorter time, because listen, like Cage Warriors, the shows that they've put on in the COVID era have been sensational. Obviously, we were lucky enough to have Cage Warriors president on Graham Boylan a couple of weeks back, which was awesome. So to finish the year with this event of Double Trouble was really exciting. Some amazing fights, some upsets, some just incredible stuff. We'll start with your fighter, Jordan Vucenic, has been announced to be fighting Paul Hughes on the 18th of March, the night before UFC London. Yeah.
It's going to be a crazy month for March, isn't it? It's going to be a great month.
Mate, that is.
And quite possibly this will be the biggest fight I think Cage Warriors has ever put on. I think this is such an anticipated rematch.
Where is that show? Is it at your call or is it at someone else? No, it's at the O2, at the Indigo.
At the O2, yeah. Oof. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a huge fight. There's going to be a lot of advertisement around this. There's going to be a lot of publicity aspects going on. And, it's going to be great. It really is. But, Jordan, I think, is going to display how can I describe? You're going to see him win in every area. You'll see him outstrike Paul. You're going to see him out wrestle him, and he'll outdo him on the ground. I'm working heavily on Jordan's game on the ground, both defensively and aggressively. Working a lot on that, and always he's progressing with his striking. And trust me, I said before, didn't I, that a lot of the stuff we've been working with Jordan has been kind of robbing him for outright stoppages. The stoppages are going to be coming. I think it's going to start with Paul.
Mate, to be honest with you, I thought he beat Paul, and if it wasn't for the fence grab, and this is that fence grab saved him in that fight.
Yeah, he's going to get taken down, and then that could have changed the whole energy of the fight.
That fence grab, where he grabs the fence to stop himself being taken down, that changed the whole dynamic of the fight. Even though I still think Jordan still won comfortably, but I think he would have finished him if not for the fence grab. So it's a bit frustrating. That Indigo at the O2 is got a capacity of 2,800. So obviously with the equipment and stuff, that'll probably be more like 2,000, I'd thought. But 2,000, that could be incredible. Reese says, I saw the highlights of Creasy Shanks and I just kept shouting, get your hands up, as he just kept caught in the face. You talked to Sam on our show about him dropping his hands. You've said it to me before. I said it to you last night. Look, we can't scoot around it. Luke missing weight does take the shine off it a little bit. But what it does do is it means that we'll get a third fight. But I wonder, Dan Hardy floated an interesting suggestion was that they should make Luke Shanks fight someone else and make weight before he gets his trilogy fight versus Sam Creasy. I don't think that will happen myself, but what do you think of that as a suggestion?
I think it's a good idea.
Missed twice.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea because it'll perhaps make him realise that you can't get away with it. It's wrong. It's wrong. And, Luke's my friend, you know that. Love him to bits, but you can't go conducting yourself like that, not on Cage Warriors. You got to remember, Cage Warriors, for many fighters that achieve, is a precursor of going to UFC. You think Dana White's going to be looking at that sort of behaviour and be wanting to take him on with keen mind? He won't. I'm disappointed in him. I don't know whether something's gone wrong this time around. But yeah, exactly. To me, I find it inexcusable. And it's such a shame,
Such an impressive performance as well by Luke. Like
it
Luke
was
superb. This fight, you could see he was focused and he came to prove a point, came to make a point. And I thought in the cage, he made the point.
He did.
But
he did.
And the frustrating thing is he missed weight by I think it was 1.5 pounds or something. Very, very small amount. But it doesn't matter. Maybe if it was just this fight, you could kind of go out, everyone could have a bad weight cut, etc. But to miss it for 2 title fights is problematic. And I think, it is what it is. Sam's got to go away and he's got to have a look at some things. I love Sam. I love Sam's attitude. I love his the way he looks at martial arts and life generally. But the way he got finished is kind of the way that you would talk to him and we had discussed with him on the show about his hands just being too low down.
The thing is with this guy, he trains with us.
Yes.
On and off. And I started out his career back many, many years ago. So, I know what him and his brother are capable of. And one issue I've always had with him, every time he comes down, he does his sparring. I always say to him, Sam, you've got to get your hands up. And my assistant coach, Raymond Paul, watched him spar, said exactly the same thing. Then he had his title fight back along and got knocked out, didn't he? He just slipped from his grasp because his hands were low. We're like, oh, we told you so, Sam. He's like, yeah, but I'll get my hands okay. So we see him sparring again just recently. I'm like, Sam, get your hands up. He goes, I will when they engage. But yeah, he just doesn't. And there's no excuse for it other than the fact that he's got to train with his hands up more. He's absolutely got to do it. There's 2 things that are wrong with Sam's striking form. One, the hands are wayward. We know that. And the other is that he bounces. Now, the problem with bouncing is both feet leave the floor. And that means while you're up in the air, you're not going backwards, forwards, or any other place. You're just going to go up and then down. But you largely become immobile. You might as well stand there flat-footed. This is not what you should be doing. You should not be bouncing on a spot, especially when you're rocked. You might be able to get away with it, waiting for someone to come in. You might be able to get away with it then, to just suddenly strike down as they close their range. But when you've been rocked, you don't jump on the spot. And you see him do this. It was just so wrong and so frustrating.
What was weird
from my perspective to see it?
What was weird about that sort of 60 seconds was just before that, he'd rocked Luke. He'd knocked Luke down.
He staggered him over. Yep.
And I thought, all right. Because I've never really seen Luke staggered like that. Even against Jake Hadley, he just got beaten, but he never got really rocked.
No.
And I thought, oh, hang on. And Sam didn't really follow it up, which I get. I understand why he's being patient, etc. But then obviously Luke caught him, and it kind of went on from that. And like a few people in the chat saying it was frustrating to watch as he didn't get his hands up after the first shot connected.
Yeah.
But like I said about who was it just a minute ago? I forgot who it was now. Said about someone once he got caught by that first one, he didn't really react, and he didn't have the time to react to the second and third, and they're the ones which sort of finished him off. Gaz says, what are we moaning for? We get to watch it a third time. And he says, do you think it'll be co-main event under Jordan and Hughes? I mean, it could be, couldn't it? That would be what a card that would be straight away. Main event of Vucenic and Paul Hughes, co-main event, Creasy versus Shanks. But again, will Graham Boylan be reluctant to put it as a main event with the fear that if he focuses a card around it and then Luke doesn't make weight? Like, that's got to be a consideration for him now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a consideration.
I would imagine, I'm not a promoter, but I would imagine if I'm Dana White or Graham Boylan or whoever, I'm promoting this big, huge card, the last thing you want is your main event title match to not be a title match because one person hasn't made weight. So, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they do make him fight someone else first. I don't know. Like, to me, the performance and the controversy from the first fight, to me, probably outweighs a £1.5 pound missing weight. However, he's got to make sure that it's. I'm sure his team will be equally frustrated.
Can you imagine James Doolan? I mean, James Doolan's very, very professional, very, very specific of his approach in all aspects of MMA. He must be doing his nut with Luke. And I know what Luke's like. He is an absolute nightmare to make him do what needs to be done to make weight. Make sure he's doing what he needs to be doing to be fit enough, to be strong enough, to be technical enough. He's very, very frustrating. He's full of all this talent and he's a fighter through and through. You know, if he had to step in at lightweight to do, he would do it. You know, he has practically no fear. Yes, but my goodness, he's got to act like a professional. He's got to act like a professional.
Lee there says a pro always makes weight. And I think there's a fair comment. So very quickly, I'm not going to go through all the Cage Warriors fights, but I want to talk about, obviously, you had your fighter, Tom Mearns, made his return to Cage Warriors after he'd gone and fought elsewhere for a bit. Tom always has bangers. He's always game. But I thought he looked at featherweight, which you've been banging the drum and saying that he should be at featherweight, and that's where he needs to be if he wants to progress. I thought he looked a whole different level, kettle of fish, whatever you want to say. I thought he looked very impressive. But just tell us the coach's point of view from the corner.
Well, it was
kind of swing it around and move on.
It was a great result. It was a good fight, but my God, did it come with his stresses. What happened was, after the first round, which he was really dominant, he picked him up, didn't he, and run him over to our cage, outside of the cage. It was great work, really, really, really good. And I felt like, all right, if he does another round like this, he's probably going to finish the guy. But the first thing Tom said to me was, I've done my ankle. And I'm like, what do you mean you've done your ankle? He goes, when I took him down and I brought him over to you, my ankle went. I'm like, he was thinking of pulling out. He said, I don't know whether I can carry on. So the whole cornering was more of a discussion of whether he should continue or not. And I said, Tom, when you're in there, let him come to you, just clinch up with him to stabilize things and press him up against the fence. You don't have to take him down. Just press him against the fence and beat him there, because he doesn't have the knowledge to turn off the fence properly. But of course, he got the second. I don't know whether you've seen it. Have you seen it, Si?
I saw most of it,
all of it. In the second round, he was similar to the first round in that he got the clinch. He was beating him up against the fence with knees to the thigh. It was all going well. But once they broke halfway through that second round, his ankle was just too far gone to keep shooting. He couldn't carry his own body weight and someone else's. Yes. So we had to come to that decision of, well, we're going to have to strike with the guy. And if anyone knows anything about Tom's opponent that night, well, the other lad's a very good striker too, but we're kind of having to play at the other fella's strengths. You know, Tom is a great grinder. He's a good striker in his own right, but to beat this guy, had to grind out his wrestling, get him on the ground and smother him on the ground, not give him any space to work. So for that third round was real worrying, because he had to trade on the feet for the whole round, knowing that he hasn't got the capability to shoot. So had we continued to have a fit Tom, I think he would have put this guy away. But
Yeah.
we'll never know, I guess. But Tom, yeah, he's looking great. He's in high spirits. He sent me a lovely message, basically saying that I was right about the weight. His weight cut went absolutely on point. He's very, very happy with it. He's happy with all the rehabilitation. Tom's back, and more importantly, he's back at featherweight where he belongs.
Yes, mate, like it. It was good stuff indeed. I thought Kingsley Crawford versus Liam Gittins was a fantastic fight. Kingsley Crawford picked up the victory via decision, but I just thought Liam Gittins looked so much better. And I know he lost, so maybe he will not feel that. But I just thought he looked real dangerous. Kingsley Crawford is no mug. This is the thing. Like some of these fighters we're going to talk about, like these are the guys are the real deal. These are real killers.
Sure.
Like I know, like Oban very disappointed that he lost his fight, but like Madaz Flaminas is an absolute animal, really good fighter. And Oban he got caught and he got put in a position where he just couldn't get out of the position.
Right.
But what Oban Elliott's got, and I know he made some mistakes, but what he's got is he's got natural ability, natural talent. He's got age. He's only 23. And he's got a fantastic team on his side. So I've no doubt that he will keep going and going and going, and his time will come. His opponent there's no shame in losing to an opponent like that.
Yeah.
But he did make some errors along the way, which also, what was going on with the canvas in that particularly the first night, there was fighters slipping all over the place. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
In the main event, they were like almost falling. It was ice. They were like falling apart.
Because wasn't it just on the areas where it was a sticker, or was it all over?
I'm not sure. It did seem to be a couple of areas. There was one area where it was worse, but like, I don't know, like 23 is no age, mate, is it?
Oh no,
in terms of
Oban is he's just young, and he's got all the skill sets there. He's got all the tools. He's got the team. He's just making the wrong decisions.
Together.
Yeah, at the moment, and it is just his age. It literally is just an inexperienced at that level, but and he seemed to have really good mindset. I saw a couple of short little story clips on Facebook, really accepting and embracing that he lost and what it was all about and how he's going to push forward. As long as he keeps this positive attitude during these harder times of swallowing a loss, this kid will go far. He's definitely got talent there, and everything's practically in place. He just needs a little bit more maturity in his career and a little bit of maturity physically wise. You've got to remember, 23 years old, he ain't reached his physical peak yet. So there's a few things that just need to play out with a little bit of time. Yeah, and he'll be back.
Another fight I was really looking forward to was Will Curry versus Nikola Zlatev. I was really looking forward to this fight, even though Will Curry was coming off the back of a loss, and he just looked so cool, calm, collected, just looked so confident. He just looked like he believed that it was a matter of time before he finished this Zlatev. I was looking forward to seeing the Zlatev fight, but he finished it with Will Curry got the win with a triangle choke after a couple of minutes. It was just impressive performance.
You don't see many triangles in the men's in MMA now. Don't see many triangles.
I want to talk about the main event on that first night, which was Gaethje Maylan versus Matt Bonner. Oh, this was frustrating.
Okay.
So the first 4 rounds, Maylan dominated, and then all of a sudden, in the 5th round, Matt Bonner knew he was 4 rounds down. He had to do something, and he decimated Maylan in that 5th round. But it was too late, and Maylan was big enough and had enough. You could see there was a point with about a minute to go, and he was just getting battered all over the place. And he just put his arms around Bonner's waist, and he just drove with all the energy he had left, and he just drove him onto the floor because he knew as soon as he got him on the floor, it was done. Because he'd be able to keep Bonner down for the minute or 40 seconds or whatever, and then that's it. It was over. But I was really frustrated because I thought if Bonner had come out like he did in the 5th round in any of the first 4 rounds, he would have finished that fight comfortably and quickly. Unfortunately, in my opinion, he made the wrong decisions in the fight. he made, or should I say, in my opinion, he came out with the wrong strategy, and then in the fight didn't adjust his strategy and his plan, and it meant that he left it too late and he lost. Whereas I think that was a very winnable fight for him. And I was frustrated because he's worked so hard and got on this amazing run after everyone basically considered him a journeyman for so many years. He then went on a 5-fight win streak or whatever it was, beat everyone, got the title, and then he kind of felt like he just let it slip a bit needlessly. So I was a little bit frustrated watching that. Still a good fight, and don't take anything away from Milan. He did the business from his point of view, but yeah, it was frustrating to watch that one. Did you see? Have you seen that one? I don't think you have. Have you?
No, I haven't. No,
because it was just frustrating.
Yeah, I had to literally leave there because I went there on a train, and then we're in a bubble, and they gave us a small little TV monitor, and there to try to watch some of the fights. It was not idyllic at all because of the new COVID restrictions. Being put back in place, you're all in a safe zone. So we could. It's not like we could go and peek at. Some of the things I used to do was look through the curtain backstage and watch some of the fights from there. We couldn't do any of that, unfortunately. And straight after Tom's fight, to be honest with you, I got a train there, and I had to get a train back. And I've never been on a train on my own, and trying to deal with the underground. Oh my goodness! I don't know how I found my way back, but I ended up going back on a train that I shouldn't have perhaps gone on because it missed all the stops straight back to MK, and I sat in first class the whole way back, and I lost my card. I actually lost my train ticket, so I managed to get through, and I got home. Amazing.
Second night, Aaron Abbey, obviously been on the show before. Superb performance against Samir Fadin as well. Big name. And I saw a few people on social media saying afterwards they think Aaron Abbey should get a shot at the title. Look, he's going the right way about it. And we all know he's got a fantastic story. It's very inspirational, and some of the things he's been through and his health and stuff.
Yeah.
But what he's doing is he's not there like as a for lack of a better term, like a charity case, or he's not there to champion his illness and things he's had to deal with. He's there to fight, and he does it very well. He was unlucky against Sam Creasy. I thought he had fought very well. Does he deserve a shot at Sam Creasy? If they're going to make... So, I guess the problem you've got is if they say to Luke that he's got to fight someone else to prove he can make weight, and then they give Sam Aaron, say, and Aaron beats Sam, that completely ruins your Shanks Creasy trilogy. Yeah. But then if Luke makes weight, he could also fight Aaron. So, but it's not the. I guess it's not the same, is it? So that's another reason why I think they will do Creasy versus Shanks next to get that out of the way.
They probably will.
But I think Aaron's going to be up there because he had a close fight with Sam Creasy, and then Sam won the title. Yeah. And then he's gone and beat Samir Fadin, who's a big name, pretty convincingly. So that is impressive. Aidan Stephen won. Was very good. A lot of decisions. I think there was only two finishes on that second night. The first fight and the last fight. The last two fights.
Right.
But the Figlak brothers both picked up victories. What I like about them is their all-round ability. Paul Sutherland doing a phenomenal job with them too. But I think they're both going to do very, very well. Last few fights with them, I've been particularly impressed. I've kept a close eye on them since they fought Oban, since the one of them fought Oban, and I've been really impressed. Mateus particularly, I think, is the real deal. So that's going to be good. Dominic Wooding in the main event versus Carlos Abreu, mate. Oh my days. Carlos Abreu came in.
That one to watch.
38 seconds, mate, and I advise you to watch it. So Carlos Abreu is for Brazilian. He's like a Muay Thai fighter predominantly. That's his skill set. Came in, nailed Dominic Wooding with two massive leg kicks. Then he nailed a third one, but Dominic Wooding checked it. Then he went for a fourth one. Dominic Wooding lifted his leg and he missed it completely. Then he went for a fifth one and kind of just lost. He didn't get anywhere near Dominic Wooding, just completely fell over, fell back against the cage, lost his balance. Dominic Wooding nailed him with like a punch, so he fell against the cage. And then as he was against the cage, Dominic Wooding just sort of ran in with a knee to the jaw, kneed him in the jaw. And then he just did like this shuffle to the side and just like massive uppercut, game over. And Dominic Wooding looked like, whew, it was impressive, mate. Really. And he's been like that for I think that's his third fight in, no, it's third because he was holding up 3 fingers in Cage Warriors. And every single one has been kind of that dominant display. And it's strange how things can change. Talking about like Eubank earlier, mate, Dominic Wooding said in his interview afterwards, like when he went to, I think he's with Brad Pickett, isn't he? He's with Great Britain top team. And when he came to them, he was on the back of a couple of losses. He had been in Bellator and he'd lost twice in Bellator. And he was he said himself, he was very down, wasn't sure like where his career was going. He's gone into the Britain top team, come into Cage Warriors and just start. So his longest fight went against Nathan Fletcher, went into the 3rd round, and he still knocked out Nathan Fletcher in that 3rd round. The other 2 have just been like under a minute. From what he said, he won't be defending that title again. He'll be in the UFC. Sounded like he's going to be on that UFC London card, to be honest with you. But I was impressed with, like 38 seconds. You can't be impressed with, anything particularly in that time. One thing I was impressed with was the way and the speed that when he had that opportunity to finish it, even that early on. And bear in mind that the opportunity didn't come from him doing anything. It came from his opponent losing his balance and slipping. And that split second, it was done. And I think that, to me, that's what the great fight, the top level fighters do, is if you make a mistake, it only has to be a split second. That mistake is punished. And that's what Paddy Pimblett did in Cage Warriors. That's what Modestas did in Cage Warriors. That's what all those top fighters in the UFC do, is you make a mistake, you are punished, and it's game over. You don't get a second chance. And I think that was what impressed me, just because, especially because he didn't force the mistake. The guy just lost his balance and he just was like, oh, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Easy work. But very impressive. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll be in Cage Warriors much longer, but we'll get to watch the UFC London card. Right. We're going to hit 2 hours again, for God's sake. There's just so much to talk about, though, mate. I don't mind it. It's fun. It's good. So a couple of questions. I know Lee wants to know. He wants to know who you think is going to win out of Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. Was rearranged for into the new year. I know you're not as up to date with your boxing as you are MMA, but I think you're relatively familiar with these two, aren't you?
Yeah. Let's go for Eubanks.
Interesting. I'm going to go with Liam Williams. Liam Williams, I think, is a very strong fighter. I was really, they hate each other, and I think like going back to Luke when he fought Jake Hadley, sometimes that can make a difference when you really dislike your opponent. The emotion of it can get caught up in it.
Sure.
So it could come, because they're both quite evenly matched skill wise. It could come down to who deals with the emotion of disliking each other the best. So that'll be interesting. Like the Eubank family is predominantly known for not showing a great deal of emotion. So could that be a benefit? Don't know. Interesting. Reese asked earlier something about MMA gyms. I said, sorry, I just got to find it. It was basically something like, if MMA gyms, do they welcome people to train fitness, or is it only like for people who don't want to fight, basically, if they just want to train fitness? It says, I wanted to ask, how friendly are MMA gyms for people who just want to get in shape or fit? and not to actually fight, or is it aimed at people who want to fight?
Well, our gym, I can only really talk on. It's just the one that I have exposure always to. And I said it in previous podcasts that 98% of people who come through and train MMA will never fight MMA. The amount of actual people that go through to compete at any given level is quite small. Yet you have quite a lot of amateurs, and then out of those amateurs, only a certain percentage will go on to pro, and out of those pro, only a certain amount of those will go on to fight any more than 5 times and make anything of their careers. So the percentage is actually really, really small. It's we do have our elite classes, which is geared towards people who want to compete or of the competing level. Because another thing that might surprise people is there's quite a few people that train that have never and will never fight. They're just good at doing it, but their job don't allow them to, or they haven't got the interest in, competing. So, you can absolutely come along. We do have a beginners class, which is more socially, it's just more relaxed, basically. You can choose to spar or not to spar, whereas in our elite class, I pretty much make them do minimum 2 rounds unless they got a good reason not to, things like that. But yeah, you can go along to, I'd imagine, any of these MMA gyms and train for the sake of training and confidence and fitness and for the social aspects, and not feel under any obligation to compete.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff indeed. Another phenomenal show. Big thank you to Arnold Allen for joining us. Next week, we should have Reese McKee joining us. Just waiting for confirmation on that, but that's the plan. Pretty sure he will be. So looking forward to that. Appreciate all the questions. Appreciate all the nice comments and whatnot. And we'll be back next week. Last show of the year. So do come and join us and say hello. Spread the word. Tell people about our show, about the channel, all that good stuff. Danny, I need to speak to you really quickly before before you shoot off. So don't go anywhere. The gold color says, sadly, most of my fights were in the USMC and street and would have been a hell of a time to compete. There we go.
Right.
And cheers, Danny. Says, good. All have a great Christmas. See you all.
Cheers, Reese.
Next episode. Nice one. Right, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Spread the word. The audio version will be out tomorrow morning if you'd like to listen to it. But enjoy. Good night.
Sorry, I'll call you. I'll call you straight after. I'll call you in a moment. I'll let the intro finish and I'll give you a call. I'll go to the toilet.
Yeah, man.
Before I go do anything.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.